What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So last week when we got the TCG Forbidden and Limited list, it actually kind of overshadowed the fact that the OCG got their new Forbidden and Limited list as well, which is going to go into effect October 1st. Now, I think it's a bit bizarre that Konami kind of released these one after another because, yeah, it doesn't necessarily affect us, but I think just in terms of like news cycling, it's kind of weird, especially considering the TCG list is now in effect and the OCG list doesn't go in effect until October. So, a little bit weird, but I wanted to make sure that I covered this because even though the TCG doesn't directly parallel with the OCG, there are a lot of things that we can look to their format to see what's happening and what may come for us. I mean, on their last list, Hornet drones got limited to 1, and on our most recent list, we also followed suit. So, there are sometimes some things that are pretty much in common, but obviously we are two different formats, but I still wanted to share my thoughts with you guys regardless. But before we do, just want to give a big shout out to my newest YouTube channel members as always. So big shout outs today to Joshua and Christian. You guys are the reason that this channel is growing strong. And if you guys want to help support me in the channel through a YouTube channel membership, hit the join button down below or check out the links in the description. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So here is the October 2018 Forbidden and Limited list. We're going to start with the Forbidden cards as always. So I'm going to put the first two together being Amazonas Archer and Cannon Soldier MK2. Now, for those of you who pretty much aren't aware of these two cards, these are pretty much used in degenerate FTK strategies that pretty much still cycle around Firewall being in existence. So rather than, again, hitting the problem, they're trying to just hit every single, like, tribute burn monster effect that exists in the game where you tribute a monster to inflict damage to your opponent. But, you know, every time they seem to do that, they did that with Cannon Soldier and Toon Cannon Soldier on the last ban list, people find ways to use other burn monsters that have a similar effect, and that's what we saw here. So they banned Cannon Soldier. Well, guess what? They just used Cannon Soldier MK2. But this kind of just gets at a bigger issue here that if they banned Firewall, none of this would be a problem and they wouldn't have to ban just the most random ass cards like Cannon Soldier MK2, like Amazonas Archer. Yeah, I guess Infernity Burn is still a thing, but again, without Firewall, it's very unlikely that those strategies are going to be able to exist. So I guess it's good, but at the same time, I feel like it's dodging a bigger issue, but what do I know? You know, I don't, it's not like I play the game or anything. The big forbidden card here for me, though, is Summon Sorceress. Now, honestly, Firewall's probably the strongest Link monster ever created just because of all the crazy things it enables. But Summon Sorceress is not too far behind. I've always said that if you ever read a monster effect or a card effect and it allows you to special summon a monster from the deck for basically little to no cost, that card is broken. And I mean, there's plenty of examples of this. Tour Guide, Emergency Teleport, you know, I could just keep going on, but these are just some of the most powerful cards in the game, and I feel like Summon Sorceress is kind of in that category. And the thing with Summon Sorceress is it's generic and you can play it in pretty much every single deck. Now, a lot of these crazy combo decks, especially with Firewall, for Needle Fiber in the OCG, Summon Sorceress is an integral part of those strategies because, especially with Needle Fiber, you get your extra monster out, most likely you're upgrading into Summon Sorceress at that point, and that's how you continue with your combo. So the fact that Summon Sorceress is already getting banned tells me that, you know, there's a pretty high likelihood something might happen to it on our next list, which I believe we get in November, if my memory serves correctly. I think we get it after YCS Pasadena, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's one of those no sooner than, no earlier than instances. But overall, I think that's rather interesting. Needle Fiber still exists, which is crazy because that's one of the most broken cards ever made. But I guess if you hit Summon Sorceress, I guess it kind of curbs the power of Needle Fiber. That card's still just absolutely absurd regardless. Then on to the limited cards, though. We have Performage Damage Juggler, Nightmare Goblin, Tempest, Dragon Ruler of Storms, oh boy, Hero Lives, and Gold Sarcophagus. So, Damage Juggler's fine. I mean, we have it here in the TCG. It's not really a problem. Nightmare Goblin going to 1 is rather interesting because here in the TCG, they actually banned it. Now, as we've seen, Nightmare Goblin getting banned doesn't exactly stop a lot of the problems, but I guess it kind of, you know, slightly affected certain strategies, but it's just kind of odd to me because I feel like most of these decks are only playing one Nightmare Goblin anyway. Some were playing two, but in very rare instances, you had to have a very particular deck to do so. I don't really feel like putting it to one does anything. It's one of those cards I feel like that has to get banned, and even then, we've seen that people are going to come up with ways to do some of these crazy strategies like Goki and stuff, even without Nightmare Goblins. So, I don't know. It just seems kind of like an extraneous hit at this point. Tempest going to 1 is very interesting, not because of the fact that it came to 1 itself. Tempest is probably the weakest of the 4 Dragon Rulers because Wind is debatably the worst worst attribute in the game. What's interesting is that the fact they're actually considering moving these Dragon Rulers off the list, and so it'll be interesting to see like if Tidal comes off, if Blaster comes off, if Redox comes off. It'll be really interesting to see how those cards affect the metagame. I don't know, it might be a slippery slope, but I think starting with Tempest is at least okay. Honestly, I don't think Tempest is really going to do anything. Hero Lives going to 1 makes sense. We know that there's one card, extra links, and I think there's actually an FTK either in the OCG or the TCG, I don't remember, so that card going to 1 makes sense. They do have 2 Stratos, do keep that in mind. And also, Gold Sarc going to 1 is interesting. Now, what's weird here is that Gold Sarcophagus is used in Thunder Dragons as kind of like their ultimate starter card, but what's odd is that if you analyze the OCG's metagame, Thunder Dragons have kind of fallen out of favor just because of the fact that Altergeist has just been being so dominant, and Altergeist has an incredibly good matchup against Thunder Dragon, so it's kind of weird to me that they banned this, or limited this card rather, because if the deck's not doing that well, I don't really see the point in limiting it. I don't know. I guess Gold Sarc's one of those cards that could kind of hinder card design because if it has the potential to be broken just because of anything that gets like a banish trigger or something like that. So maybe it's for future proofing, but even though it's a hit to Thunder Dragon, I don't necessarily think they did it to hit Thunder Dragon in general. Kind of an odd hit to me. Now we have semi-limits. You guys know how I feel about the semi-limited list. I feel like it's kind of worthless, but let's just take a look anyway. Altergeist Multi-Faker, like, okay. Necros of Brionic. Really interesting to see that because Necros is getting closer and closer each list to full power back in the OCG, so that's kind of interesting. Dante going to 2. They had it at 1 previously, I believe, so like, oh boy, 2 Dantes. I think they have 3 Beatrice, though, so that's actually a pretty big deal. Widow Anchor and Engage for Sky Strikers going to 2. They still have 1 Hornet Drone, so again, like, I don't know if that's going to be enough to stop the deck. Like, it just creates so much random variance when you have these cards at 2. I don't know, it just seems odd. Super Poly going to 2, that to me, the fact that it's at 1 is crazy enough, but now they're at 2, that's kind of scary. That grass looks greener, again, just more variance, like, I don't understand. I think it was at 3 previously, so I guess, right? True King's Return, they hit a lot more Draco than we did. We see here Draco's fine, and Ring of Destruction's at 2 for them, but yet we have it at 3, and no one's still gonna play it. And then lastly, we'll just talk about the Unlimits, because this is where it gets really interesting. So, Alistair the Invoker, we have it here in the TCG at 3, but they've had it at 1 for the longest time, and then I think it moved to 2, and now it's at 3. So that's pretty cool. Spiral Gear Drone going back to 3 is pretty nice. I don't think Spiral's as big of a threat. It's able to, pop up here and there in the OCG, but nothing too crazy. Disc Commander going to 3. It has an errata, and it's absolutely terrible. Ivagishki Gust Kraken is something that, I don't think it's going to do anything. It's kind of one of those cards that's been on the list forever, so I guess they finally moved that off. But the biggest hit, or I guess unlimits that they did to the list is El Shaddoll Construct now being at 3. I think it was previously limited, and then I think they might have moved it to semi-limited. I'm not 100% sure, but now it's at 3. And that means that the OCG, I believe, now has full power Shaddolls. And not to mention they have Super Poly at 2. That's fucking insane. Now, is Shaddolls going to do anything? Probably not. It's probably been power crept at this point, but it's really interesting to see that Shaddoll is basically at full power again, and maybe it will do something. Who knows? But I think it's just really cool to see that one of the most powerful fusion monsters in the game is now unlimited, and people were side decking Shaddoll Fusion previously just because it had a lot of versatility, so maybe people are going to mess with it. I'm not too sure, but if anything, I guess we'll go ahead and wait and see. In terms of TCG implications, though, I don't really know. There's some things that just don't really make sense to me. Like, again, I feel like Summon Sorceress has a target on its back for our next ban list, judging off of this, but a lot of the other things on here are either things we already have or things that don't really seem to be too problematic, so I'm not really too sure how that's going to go, but I guess I can leave that for you guys to decide and let me know down in the comments below. So guys, that's going to do it for the video. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider becoming a YouTube channel member, because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.